So can anybody tell me what do you mean by how many types of neurons are there? Post it in the chat box. So, okay, Alina gets marks for it. And even I think Aisha has also written, Aisha wrote sensory and motor and interneuron. Yes, and they are also called as, Aisha has given correct all the correct three, so she gets full marks, and Alina, you answered only two, that is sensory and motor. And they are also called as, sensory is called as afferent, motor are called as efferent, and one more is there, third one, which you were saying, that neuron, and it can also be called as an associate neurons. So they have got a sensory or afferent, motor or efferent, interneurons, or you have got associate neurons. So as we have already discussed about, sensory neurons are also called as afferent neurons, which senses why do we call it sensory? Because it senses the stimuli, where they sense it, and then they pass the information to the central nervous system, and then the central nervous system passes on the messages through motor or the efferent neurons. You call it motor or efferent, which carries messages to the body parts, and then the body responds what action has to be taken. So, and interneurons are or associate neurons are those which does both the function. So we'll come to know about them after it. So please note it down, note down this efferent, which carries messages from the central nervous system to the parts that shall carry out the response of or the effectors. So they are also called as the motor nerves. Now let us see what are the third type of nerves and how are those nerves functioning. So they are called as the associate nerves or interneurons. So these associate nerves which link together with the efferent, as well as, to the parts of the body. That is, they have got the association. These nerves creates that association or link. So our body would also need to respond to certain situations on which we may not have a control. Such responses are called reflexes. Like supposing if I'm raising a hand or doing some action, that is called as a voluntary action. If your friend is going out, you say bye. So you shake your hand and say bye. It is not an action that your brain is, it is voluntary. You call it voluntary. But there are certain actions which are involuntary. You can, you are not doing it yourself, but brain does this continuously. Like if you see the heartbeat, beating of the heart is a involuntary function. Okay, but raising your hand or plucking a flower, these are all voluntarily. You are doing it. You can, if you want, you can do. If you don't want, you will not do it. So these are called, responses are called reflexes, which, these are the situations, certain situations which happens without your control, then we call it reflex actions. So did you all understand what is the meaning of reflex action? And can you please type what did you understand by reflex action in your own word in the chat box? Okay, so that is what our body also needs to respond. And these reflexes are very important. This has to work automatically. Like if you look at the knee jerk, what happens? The knee jerk reflex is also called as monosympathetic reflex, because there is only one synapse in the circuit needed to complete the reflex action. So यहाँ पर reflex action में you need, there is an entire cycle. You can see that it only takes about milliseconds between the tap and the start of the leg jerk. Whenever you go to an orthopedic doctor and all, आपके nerves काम कर रहे हैं, whether your reflex action is working. एक neurologist के पास जब भी जाते हैं, you can see that he uses a rubber hammer to check जहां पर आपके reflex action वाले nerves रहते हैं ना, there you know he uses that hammer. तो जैसे ही पड़ता है वो hammer आपको, तो अगर if your reflex action, your brain, your nerves are not damaged and they are functioning properly, immediately you will start moving your leg. So that is called as a reflex action. Yes, Ramsha. You have raised your hand.
Ma'am, who are neurologists?
Neurologists are the doctors who are the specialists जो brain और आपके spinal cord. Nervous system, we were talking about the central nervous system. जो central nervous system पे the doctor who studied about your brain and the spinal cord and all these nerves related, he is called as a neurologist. अगर कोई आपको nerves का related, central nervous system related कुछ health issues है, तो you have to consult a neurologist. Okay.
Okay, so he deals with nerves, human body nerves.
That is, just now we were talking about motor nerves, sensory nerves, as well as the associate nerves or the neurointermediate nerves, which are functioning together to sense for reflex actions, your response to stimuli, and this reflex action whole cycle. So this has been taken care by this, and this nerves, and this doctor specialist dealing with it is called a neurologist. So you can see that how minimum micro or the milliseconds it takes for this. And you know, if you are seated in a position so that the lower half of the uppermost leg hangs freely over the other, you can see that how it freely hangs. What you have to notice here is, can you notice when this is happening, how the muscle, the thigh muscle, how it is contracting and relaxing? Can you see that contraction and relaxation of the thigh muscles? जब आपको the nerve को, when you are touching the nerve with the hammer, so muscle in the thigh is also contracting and relaxing. So your nerves are connected with your muscles. That is how the movement takes place. Such a response is said to be involuntary. ये आप जानबूझ के नहीं कर रहे हो, खुद ब खुद. If you touch your, you know, nerve, this starts moving. Did you all understand this? How is this involuntarily happening? If you have got any doubt in this, please ask so that I can explain you again. How neurologist was hammering near the knee, and you have seen that person is not moving his leg, but khud ba khud that leg is, the muscles are contracting, and you know, you can see the leg swinging, and it was involuntary. It is not in the hand of any person, but if you look, so we call it involuntary or reflex action. But here, if you look at this football player, आपको फुटबॉल खेलते वक्त when you are kicking on the ball, you know that you have to move your leg and kick this on the ball. So this action is called voluntary because you are doing it wantedly. Voluntary is doing something by yourself. Your brain is not ordering, or there is no reflex action over there, but you are doing it yourself. आप उसको अपने से जानबूझ के कर रहे हैं. So that is called voluntary. Voluntary में आप जान के कर रहे हैं. इनवॉलंटरी में आप कुछ, आपके हाथ में कुछ भी नहीं है, आपका ब्रेन करता जा रहा है. Either you like it or not, you cannot do anything. You cannot ask in involuntary action, you cannot ask your brain to stop ordering and your heart should stop. बोले तो brain will not do that. वो involuntary रहता, brain will not listen to you in those functions. But voluntary are those where, you know, without the command of that, you do it yourself. Okay, is it clear? So now let us see, hope it's all clear for you what is voluntary and what is involuntary. And then, you know, let us see how does this reflex arc functions. ये पूरा इसका एक reflex arc का mechanism, cycle होती है, how it does it. So it consists of a receptor, sensory nerve, receptor nerve, associate nerve, motor nerves, and the effector organ. So you have seen that how this entire cycle, that's how we have started with this reflex action only in the beginning, where this boy it carries the information to the receptor organ, and from the receptor organs to the spinal cord, and each disc of the spinal cord you can see here, and then from the sensory nerve senses this, and a gray matter is there which works over there, and in between there are association of the neurons that generates these responses, and these responses are continuous in the form of a loop or a cycle. And then the efferent fibers of the motor nerves carries this response from interneurons and the nerve system as a whole. So you can see how this entire thing is functioning, and how our efferent nerves carries messages to the brain, and the efferent nerves gives messages to the parts of the body, and associate nerves are the one which helps both these afferent and efferent nerves to carry on. Now, if you look at the central nervous system, you have as well as the peripheral nervous system. So first, let us see what do you mean by central nervous system. So central nervous system, this is very important. Central nervous system is what? It is brain and the spinal cord, and it coordinates all neural functions. Please note down this central nervous system definition. Please note it down in your notebooks. Nervous system does it. It coordinates all neuronal functions, and this brain, nerves, and spinal cord. This is very important part that is called as a central nervous system. So let us see how is this brain. This brain, as you know, it is present into a bony structure called cranium, and it is covered by a 3 layers meninges that continues the cover to spinal cord as well. So you can see that this brain and the spinal cord is such a delicate substance that is present inside the cranium, and it requires a lot of protection. So you can see that ये cranium, ये जो पूरा skull बोलते हैं आप लोग, खोपड़ी बोलते हैं, if you see whenever you must have seen during बकरीद, अगर बकरे का सर को you have to skull को तोड़ के अंदर से you remove that भेजा निकालते हैं बाहर, brain. And this brain, it's made up of the gray matter and the white matter. This continues. वो नीचे से medulla oblongata, the सबसे छोटा part of the brain, you even call it as the छोटा brain, small brain. तो वो small brain continues into the spinal cord. Okay. So spinal cord is again covered by the bony structures, and we call them as these are discs. You must have seen L1, L2 disc. किसी को gap आ गया है discs में, they are having problems, they are having pain in their back because ये bones में gaps आ जाते हैं generally. So this spinal cord is also covered very well by means of these bones. So the brain and the spinal cord together is called as a central nervous system, and they are very well protected by the bony structures, which is called as the cranium and the spinal cord. ये bony जो है इसको spinal cord जो बोलते हैं ना, these are the discs that are connected one another. And then another good protection इसमें कैसा है? They have got 3 layers. ऐसे झिल्ली membranes बोलेंगे आप. तो एक membrane like 3 membranes से ये covered रहता है, both brain and the spinal cord. बाहर तो बोन्स रहते हैं, बोन्स के अंदर फिर मेम्ब्रेन्स रहते हैं, फिर मेम्ब्रेन्स के अंदर यू विल सी दिस ब्रेन. तो ये मेम्ब्रेन्स के अंदर यू हैव गॉट अ फ्लूइड. That fluid is called as a cerebrospinal fluid. ये cerebrospinal fluid, उसके अंदर वो fluid, वो liquid क्यों रहता है? So that you know when your brain and the spinal cord के nerves में जो movement होते हैं उसको jerks नहीं आना है और वो damage नहीं होना है बोल के, that is so well protected by the membranes and then by a bony structures called cranium and spinal cord. Is this all clear to you all? कुछ doubt हो तो please ask.